The Fool, a novel written by hiermonk Savatie Bastovoi, based on the events described in the life of Saint Simeon, the Holy Fool for Christ of Edessa, originally composed by Bishop Leontius of Neapolis in Cyprus, and later included in the collection The Lives of the Saints by Saint Simeon Metaphrastes. Chapter 6. The fool remained in Deacon John's house until he had fully regained his health. The deacon was a kind and devout man who lived faithfully according to the teachings of the Bible. Though not born into the aristocracy, he had received some education and possessed a gentle manner and a powerful voice. By God's providence, he came to the attention of the bishop, and after many years of humble service at table, when the time came for him to marry, he was ordained a deacon. The office of deacon was one of honor. The deacon stood constantly in the bishop's presence and, when necessary, represented him before high officials and other bishops. He was also entrusted with preaching sermons and instructing the faithful in catechism. John, modest and sincere, earned the respect of the city's inhabitants. Though never considered wealthy, he dressed simply yet always neatly and with care. He lived in a spacious and graceful house not far from the bishop's residence. The deacon's wife was beautiful yet reserved, with an air of quiet weariness about her. Her shyness sprang partly from her humble origins. She had been an orphan taken in by the bishop to perform household duties. When the bishop resolved to ordain John, the latter chose to marry her. The bishop was not pleased with his decision, but John, firm in his resolve, declared he would enter a monastery rather than give her up. Knowing him to be a simple yet steadfast man, and already trusting him with many of his confidences, the bishop relented and gave his blessing. Her reserve also arose from a deeper sorrow. She could not bear children. At times this grief drove her to despair, and she would speak of retreating to a monastery where no one would know her. She feared their marriage was not blessed by God, and believed John deserved a wife who would give him heirs. Despite the deacon's steady efforts to comfort her, these periods of anguish returned again and again, leaving him burdened and quietly heartbroken. Both the deacon and his wife grew deeply attached to the fool, even imploring him to remain with them always. John, who often visited the hermits in the surrounding countryside, rejoiced at the thought of having a man of spiritual experience close at hand. The two would frequently fall into long conversations that stretched late into the night, speaking of divine matters and the hidden struggles of the soul. Yet Simeon, from time to time, would slip away into the city and spend entire days among beggars and street performers, throwing himself into absurd antics that set the whole city laughing. The affection of the two spouses for Simeon the Fool only deepened when, not long after his arrival, the deacon's wife told her husband she was with child. They had no doubt that this unexpected blessing had come through the prayers of Father Simeon. The woman, ordinarily shy and withdrawn, became radiant and almost talkative. In church she spoke openly of what had happened, declaring that Simeon the Fool was a holy man who visited their home, and she attributed her pregnancy to his intercession. But her joy was short-lived. The rumor spread quickly and reached the ears of the other deacon, a man who bore deep resentment toward Simeon and long-standing jealousy toward John because of the bishop's particular affection for him. In a tone of mockery, he remarked to the cantors that perhaps it was the fool who had made John's wife pregnant, since, so he claimed, everyone knew John was a eunuch and incapable of relations with a woman. He went further, asserting that he had learned this from the bishop himself, who was John's confessor. He insinuated that John had married a poor and obscure woman precisely because she would remain silent, and that the marriage itself was nothing more than a facade to conceal his impotence. After this incident, the deacon's demeanor grew noticeably colder, and he resolved to observe the fool more closely. Watching him with a new suspicion, John concluded that the fool was not as aged as he claimed to be. Beneath his slight frame, there was a well-formed, surprisingly strong body that betrayed vitality rather than frailty. His unease deepened when he noticed the striking liveliness that would overtake his ordinarily timid wife whenever the monk appeared. At last, unable to bear the quiet torment, John spoke cautiously to his wife one evening while the fool was away in the town. He confided the rumors he had heard circulating near the bishop's residence and suggested that it might be wiser to put an end to what he now called the entire foolish and unsettling arrangement with Simeon.